Can you prove that the Bible is the Word of God? Well, since they can't even prove that God exists, I wouldn't be holding my breath. I mean, the last thing I want to see is my subscribers passing out from lack of oxygen. This isn't going to be as impressive as our chaplain here seems to think that it is, but that's not exactly a surprise, is it? The religious are always convinced that the stupidity that comes out of their mouths makes some kind of sense. But we know better. So, away we go. I keep hoping that this will be the proof that we keep asking for, but I get the feeling that it's not going to be. This is a really small channel called Light on a Hill, and maybe he ought to keep that covered up because he's just embarrassing himself. Normally, I will just upload videos as they come, long or short, whatever it happens to be, but I purposely picked this one because we've had some pretty long-form videos in the past, and there's even more coming up, and I was trying to give people a little bit of a break. Therefore, here comes something a little bit shorter, but every bit as dumb. So, let's get to it.
What if I told you I could give you undeniable proof that the Bible is the Word of God and that it was authored by His own fingerprint?
I tell you to just go ahead. I also wouldn't take you seriously because I've seen this claim so many times and it's failed every single time that I'm pretty sure I already know what you're going to say, and it isn't anything that you ought to be proud of. Now, I could be wrong. This could be something entirely new, but I'll just show where it all goes wrong, as I am sure that it will. And if I'm wrong about that, and you come up with something intriguing, I'll absolutely admit my own fault. I don't think anybody would be holding their breath on any of this, though, because usually I am right, but let's hold our collective conclusions until we see the evidence presented.
So there is a hidden message in the code above, and if you read the message, it will actually give you the code. Go ahead and pause the video for a second and see if you can figure out what the code is.
No, I'm not going to play your stupid games. That's not how you talk to adults. If you have something intelligent to say, just say it. If not, stop wasting everyone's time. Now, I've seen this kind of thing before, and I'm going to tell you right now, it doesn't work the way that he's going to want to pretend that it does. This is actually, at least in part, Jewish gematria, which isn't restricted to the Jews. Similar things were done by the Greeks and the Babylonians and various Arab cultures. This has absolutely nothing to do with any gods. It's just humans doing what humans do. Of course, lots of people are ignorant of this. It's actually kind of surprising that the chaplain here, he doesn't actually understand, but this kind of thing has been around for centuries. It was popularized in modern times by the book The Bible Code by Michael Drosnin, but that's complete bunk too. The whole thing has been totally debunked. Caltech mathematician Barry Simon showed that any sufficiently large text will have similar patterns, even when it wasn't intended. War and Peace, for example, the Hebrew version, does the exact same thing. You can find whatever you're looking for, especially if you're ignorant of its origins. Not that the faithful tend to give a damn because, as we all know, they aren't at all interested in reality. Even the Jews, of whom Barry Simon, who I just mentioned, is a Jew, have debunked the whole thing as complete nonsense. Very, very few Jewish scholars take any of this seriously at all because they understand what's going on. But yeah, chaplain, go right ahead. Let's see if you have any substance at all to this claim, or if it's just another load of complete crap that you yanked out of your ass.
If you found the code, go ahead and put it in the comments. All right, so what that is called is an equidistant letter sequence, and this is actually found in the book of Genesis.
No, it's not. This is just confirmation bias. You want to find a way to justify your belief in the Bible, and this is how you're doing it. Now, to continue what I was saying before, this kind of thing has been used to proclaim Bible prophecies and crap like that. And that falls apart as soon as you know what's going on. Australian computer scientist Brendan McKay proved that Moby Dick, for example, predicted the assassinations of Yitzhak Rabin, Trotsky, Gandhi, and Martin Luther King Jr., all before any of those things happened. All of this is complete bunk, and that's been known for decades. Now, this is a very tiny channel that has, at the time that I'm making this, 4 views on this video. But the only comment that anybody has made is somebody pointing out just how idiotic the whole thing is, and of course, the video maker hasn't bothered to respond. As the commenter says, you could use the same idea to prove that Moby Dick was written by God, but we'll get to that point later where I show even that isn't true. There is no code here except the one that Christians have just kind of made up in their heads by trying a bunch of different combinations, or the ones that were put in there by the original Hebrew authors on purpose, and these people are discovering it going, wow, it must have been God. Anyway, thanks to Atiriana, the commenter on the video, who will probably never see this, but I just wanted to say, you're doing an excellent job debunking these loons.
So let's take a look and examine this. So if you look in the book of Genesis and you find the first letter T, again, this is in Hebrew, you find the first letter T, then go 49 letters and you will go to an O. Again, 49 letters, you'll get to an R, and again, 49 letters, you will get to an H. Now, what's amazing is this is repeated throughout the entire book of Genesis. But let's go a little further.
Yeah, let's not. The problem here is that this doesn't actually prove anything. Even if it did prove out, which it really doesn't, where did you get the pattern? Did you just go looking for something that might work out of confirmation bias? Because I'm willing to bet that's how this works. But again, as the commenter pointed out, that doesn't prove that God did it. Any human writer could do the same thing if they were cognizant of it. It doesn't prove that God was responsible, because you guys can't prove that God even exists. Even if we're going to assume that it just happened, though, with no human intervention required, that doesn't get you to God, because you can't prove God is real. And I pointed this out in another video. I'm not sure if that's out yet or not, but just because you want God to be responsible, that doesn't mean that God is. God isn't the automatic answer to every question that you have just because you really want him to be. You actually have to demonstrate it. You can't just assert it, and that's all he's doing. No matter what happens from here on out, at best, it's a curiosity, but it gets you absolutely nowhere remotely close to a God.
In the next book of the Bible, the book of Exodus, the same phenomenon is repeated. Start at the first T, 49 letters O, 49 letters R, 49 letters H. Now, this is not done in Leviticus, but we'll come back to that.
Because you've just made up a bald rationalization for why it fails in a book. Remember, this is all just confirmation bias. He just really wants it to be true. He's staked his professional life on it, and therefore he feels the need to convince others that it's true, or to coddle their feelings and comfort them in their existing beliefs, because otherwise he might have to learn some useful skills and get a real job. So let's see what excuses he can come up with, while understanding that absolutely none of this, at least so far, actually proves a thing. It's just another example of, I don't get it, therefore God.
The same phenomenon is found in the book of Numbers, but it's backwards. You start with an H, 49 letters R, 49 letters O, 49 letters, you get to a T. And again, this is amazing.
So it didn't work here either, so you just had to find another pattern. Remember, all of this is just made up. He's looking for coincidences that he can argue prove something that absolutely do not. There is no logic here whatsoever. It's all just wishful thinking. Come on, you really can't be this dumb, can you? Oh, yeah, of course you can. You're religious.
In the final book of the Torah, Deuteronomy, it's again same equidistant letter sequence, but it's backwards in the book of Deuteronomy. H-R-O-T.
Now, if you look at his picture, you're going to notice that the T, or whatever it is not 49 characters from anything. It's just hanging out there in the middle of nowhere, several lines down from the first three. I have no idea if he's going to rationalize that away or what, because it really doesn't matter. This is just pattern seeking, looking for something that you want to think is there, and then finding a way to get there, even if it isn't justifiable. This is really just embarrassing for the theist, but then again, everything they say is, so I guess that's not anything out of the ordinary.
Now, where does that leave us with the book of Leviticus? In Leviticus, we don't have an equidistant letter sequence using the word Torah, but there is a really important word that is used in the Bible that was very holy that is found in the book of Leviticus. And that is the word Yahweh, spelled Y-H-W-H in Hebrew.
So now, because you can't find the sequence that you want, you're just going to arbitrarily change to another sequence and pretend it still means the same thing. Different word, different interval, still the same confirmation bias nonsense. This kind of thing is all too common among the religiously desperate. They just want to find things that prove that they're right, at least to people who don't think about it too hard. And if you look hard enough at any book, you're going to be able to find what you're looking for, especially if you're willing to make some excuses and play fast and loose with your own rules. Anyway, let's get back to it because this is really dumb, isn't it?
So, and it is not done in 49 letters, it is done in 7. You go to the first Y, go 7 letters, you get to the word H or the letter H, 7 letters W, 7 letters H again, all throughout the book of Leviticus.
So what? Go to any book, find one on your shelf, it really doesn't matter, and go any number of random letters in, then pick any multiple you want, and see if you can come up with something that makes an interpretable word. If it doesn't, start over, do it again with different intervals. Keep repeating it until you find something that you can interpret as meaningful or magical. Remember, he's not following any objective standards here. He's finding things that he thinks are significant, very, very short, 4-letter things that he interprets as meaningful, and then he's just declaring that they are in fact significant. That doesn't actually mean that they are, though, because he doesn't care. There are books that you can look at where it is significant, that were done on purpose. For instance, David Blaine wrote a book called Mysterious Stranger, where he offered $100,000 to anybody who could crack the code in his book and find the treasure. Kit Williams wrote a book in 1979 called Masquerade, where he put clues that led to a golden rabbit. Are those written by God now because obviously humans can't come up with stuff like that? Or are you just stupid enough to assert that? Or has this just been a very, very common literary trope for many, 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 many years? At least those codes were real, unlike this Bible garbage that he's pushing.
Now, this is done in all 5 books of the Bible, and yet and still the Bible makes sense, and it is also readable. How in the world does that happen? But let's examine what this phenomenon is teaching us.
Oh, right. Now we're going to get to the part where he just makes more bald assertions about things that aren't real to begin with. This ought to be fun, right? He's taken what is, at best, a curiosity and tried to turn it into something meaningful. And it's just not. Just because you really want it to be true, that doesn't mean that it is. You actually have to demonstrate it, and that requires facts, not faith. Granted, we already know who has no facts to present, right? So let's just get this over with.
In Genesis and Exodus, you find the Torah pointing this way. And then in Numbers and Deuteronomy, you find it going this way. And it's creating something that points to the middle. And what did we say that we had in the middle? The divine name of God, Yahweh.
Yeah, that's stupid. It just shows how you can read absolutely anything you want into absolutely anything you want if you're desperate enough and willing to break your own rules. Because there is no code here. It's just a coincidence at best and complete bunk at worst. And even if every single bit of it were true, that doesn't mean that God did it. You can't get to God until you can prove God is real. And I don't think this bozo can tie his own shoes, much less think rationally and critically enough and care about the truth and present objectively verifiable evidence that any God of any kind exists. That's probably why nobody is watching his videos. Remember, 4 views, and at least 2 of them, mine and that lone commenter, were atheists. I've talked about this before, how 14% of your subscribers are supposed to watch your videos, and he is nowhere remotely close.
The Torah always points to Yahweh. What human person the Bible's written centuries ago now, could have authored this if it wasn't God's own fingerprint, giving us undeniable proof that even though this was all written by Moses, do we really think Moses would have had the intelligence to do something like this?
Oh, right. The tired old primitive people were idiots screed. Now, you'd think that a black man might want to reconsider that, since it really wasn't that long ago when people said exactly the same thing about his own side and kept them as slaves for their own good. But that would require that he had any clue, and it's painfully obvious that he doesn't. So, yes, they were every bit as smart as we are. They weren't technologically savvy, certainly. They didn't have the same kind of information that we did, but they could think every bit as well as we can. Probably better, given the kind of stupid crap that a lot of modern people seem to think. This is the exact same mentality that people use when claiming that aliens must have built the pyramids because, the ancient Egyptians were too stupid to do it on their own. Yeah, except they weren't. So do try again.
This is undeniable proof that the Bible always points to Yahweh, and his own fingerprint is included in the scriptures. I know it's been a while since I came back, or since I made a TikTok, but man, this was a good one.
If this is good, then I shudder to think what utter crap your previous content must have been. This was embarrassing, and while that's not exactly a surprise, this is what we've come to expect from the religious. Absolutely everything that he said was idiotic, unsupported wishful thinking. It was confirmation bias from beginning to end, and he went looking for something in the Bible to believe in, something that's utterly indefensible to begin with, and either he came across this from somebody else, or he just made it up on his own, and now he's just showing what a gullible git he is by putting it up on YouTube or TikTok or whatever. I hate TikTok, if you don't know. I think the really, really short form content is idiotic, but there you go. These people are not making themselves look good. That's good for the non-religious because we're certainly not the only ones noticing. Even the religious, the ones with a couple of brain cells to rub together, they're going to look at this video and realize just how pathetic these claims are. The fanatics like this guy, the ones so desperate to get to their emotionally comforting happy land, they're so far out there in the weeds that they won't care, but in reality, they're just proving just how crazy Christianity is. That's why the numbers continue to dwindle. So thanks for helping out, pal. Hopefully, very, very soon, you're going to be out of a job.